The art of strategic thinking. How to outsmart any challenge. Anticipate every move. Outsmart competitors. Turn obstacles into opportunities. Make smarter decisions. Build influence and master the mindset of great leaders to design a life of clarity, power, and lasting success.
Introduction. Have you ever faced a challenge so overwhelming that you wished you had a secret playbook to outsmart it? The truth is, life isn't just about hard work. It's about thinking smarter, sharper, and more strategically than the obstacles in your way. The art of strategic thinking is that playbook. This book will train your mind to anticipate problems, spot hidden opportunities, and win in situations where others stumble. If you've ever wanted to unlock the mindset of great leaders, innovators, and achievers, this is your guide. Subscribe your mind to these strategies and success will follow.
Chapter 1. The Mindset of a Strategist. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to navigate life's toughest challenges with a sense of calm, almost as if they knew what was coming? They are rarely shaken by sudden obstacles. Instead of reacting with panic, they pause, assess, and move forward with precision. What sets them apart is not luck, but a mindset, a way of thinking that elevates them above the noise. This is the mindset of a strategist. Strategic thinking begins not with tools or techniques, but with the way you approach life itself. Most people live reactively. They respond to whatever comes their way, bouncing from one problem to the next, hoping that things will eventually fall into place. A strategist, however, plays a different game. They don't wait for circumstances to dictate their choices. They design the path forward. This mindset shift from reactive to proactive foresight is the foundation of all great strategy. From reaction to proactive foresight. The first step in developing a strategist mindset is learning to anticipate. A reactive thinker sees problems only when they arrive. A strategic thinker, by contrast, looks ahead, scanning the horizon for patterns, signals, and possible outcomes. This isn't about being paranoid or fearful of the future. It's about cultivating foresight, the ability to prepare before the storm hits. Think of a chess player. They don't just focus on the move in front of them. They're already thinking about what the board will look like 3, 5, or even 10 moves later. Foresight doesn't come from mystical intuition. It's built through habits. Reading widely, observing carefully, asking what-if questions, and reflecting on past experiences sharpen this ability. Over time, the brain becomes conditioned to think in possibilities rather than just immediate realities. The strategist trains their mind to live slightly ahead of the present moment. The power of mental models. One of the most valuable assets in a strategist mindset is the use of mental models, frameworks that simplify complex situations into patterns we can understand. For instance, the concept of second-order thinking is a powerful model. Average thinkers stop at the immediate effect of a decision. If I do X, Y will happen. Strategic thinkers go further. If I do X, Y will happen, which will then cause Z. This extra layer of thought often reveals consequences others miss. Similarly, models like Pareto's 80-20 principle, opportunity cost, and leverage are tools that strategic thinkers keep in their mental toolkit. These aren't abstract theories, but practical lenses that help simplify choices and guide actions with clarity. The more models you adopt, the more angles you can see from, and the more flexible your thinking becomes. Embracing long-term vision. A strategist always balances today with tomorrow. While most people obsess over immediate gratification or short-term problems, strategic thinkers anchor themselves in a long-term vision. They ask questions like, where do I want to be 5 years from now? How will today's choices shape that future? This doesn't mean ignoring the present. Rather, it means aligning the present with the bigger picture. Consider successful entrepreneurs, leaders, or even athletes. They rarely make decisions based solely on today's comfort. Instead, they sacrifice short-term ease for long-term gain. That sacrifice is guided by clarity of vision. Without vision, people drift. With vision, every move has direction, and obstacles become part of the journey instead of random disruptions. The discipline of detachment. Another key trait of the strategist mindset is emotional control. In a crisis, most people are consumed by fear, frustration, or anger. Emotions cloud judgment and force hasty, irrational decisions. A strategist, however, cultivates detachment, the ability to step back, breathe, and analyze a situation without being swept away by feelings. Detachment doesn't mean being cold or emotionless. It means mastering the pause between stimulus and response. When you pause, you create space for rational analysis. You give yourself the power to choose rather than to react. This one practice alone can transform how you handle conflicts, negotiations, or unexpected setbacks. The habit of continuous learning. Strategic thinking is not a one-time skill, it is a lifelong discipline. The world is constantly changing, and strategies that worked yesterday may be useless tomorrow. The strategist accepts this reality and commits to continuous learning. They read books, study history, analyze case studies, and learn from both successes and failures. Every experience becomes data. The Roman philosopher Seneca once said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." Preparation comes from learning. The more you feed your mind, the richer your reservoir of ideas, and the more connections you can make when facing new challenges. In a sense, strategic thinkers never stop being students. Their humility to learn keeps them ahead of those who assume they already know enough. Thinking in systems, not silos. Most people look at problems in isolation. A strategist understands that every problem exists within a system. A career decision isn't just about money, it's about lifestyle, relationships, growth, and values. A health choice isn't just about fitness, it's connected to energy, productivity, and mental clarity. Thinking in systems means seeing the interconnectedness of life. This mindset helps strategists avoid short-sighted fixes. Instead of treating symptoms, they address root causes. Instead of patching holes, they redesign the system. This is why their solutions often appear more elegant and lasting. They solve the problem at the level where it actually exists. Resilience, the backbone of strategy. Even the sharpest strategies sometimes fail. The difference between those who crumble and those who thrive is resilience. The strategist knows that failure is not final, it's feedback. Every setback contains lessons, and every obstacle is raw material for growth. Instead of being paralyzed by mistakes, strategic thinkers extract wisdom and try again with refined insight. Resilience is not just about bouncing back, it's about bouncing forward. Each fall propels you to a higher level of awareness and adaptability. This mindset transforms challenges from threats to training grounds, preparing you for even bigger opportunities ahead. Becoming a strategist in daily life. You don't need to be a CEO, general, or world leader to think strategically. You can apply this mindset in your everyday life, planning your week with foresight, anticipating challenges at work, managing relationships with long-term perspective, or making financial decisions with clarity. All of these are acts of strategy. The real power of the strategist mindset lies in consistency. When you live each day with foresight, vision, emotional control, and continuous learning, you begin to outthink, not just outwork your challenges. You become less reactive, less overwhelmed, and more in control of your direction. Final thought. The strategist mindset is not a luxury, it is a necessity in today's world. We live in times of rapid change, uncertainty, and constant competition. Those who merely react will always be at the mercy of circumstances. Those who think strategically, however, will always find a way forward. This chapter has laid the foundation: mindset first, technique second. Once you internalize this way of thinking, proactive foresight, long-term vision, emotional control, and resilience, you step into a different arena. You stop playing the game everyone else is playing, and you start shaping the game itself. And that is the true beginning of strategic mastery.
Chapter 2. Seeing the Bigger Picture. Have you ever been so caught up in a small detail that you completely miss the larger opportunity? It happens to all of us. We focus on the immediate task, the urgent problem, or the tiny setback in front of us, while overlooking the broader pattern that could completely change the game. Strategic thinkers refuse to get trapped in the weeds. They constantly zoom out, adjust their perspective, and see connections others failed to notice. This ability to see the bigger picture is what separates tactical moves from true strategy. The danger of tunnel vision. Tunnel vision is the enemy of strategic thinking. When you become obsessed with one goal, one problem, or one perspective, you lose awareness of the wider environment. Imagine a salesperson who obsesses over closing a single deal but forgets to nurture long-term relationships. Or a student who focuses only on memorizing facts but fails to grasp the deeper concepts that create understanding. Tunnel vision may produce short-term wins, but it often comes at the cost of long-term success. Seeing the bigger picture is not about ignoring details. It's about placing details within context. A single puzzle piece may look confusing or meaningless, but once you step back and see the entire puzzle, that piece suddenly makes sense. Strategic thinkers remind themselves constantly, this problem is part of a larger system. By widening their lens, they gain clarity that others miss. Zooming out, the power of perspective. One of the simplest yet most powerful habits of a strategist is the ability to zoom out. When emotions run high or challenges feel overwhelming, they mentally step back and ask, how will this matter in a week, a year, 5 years? This time-based perspective is liberating. It prevents small frustrations from derailing long-term plans and keeps focus on what truly matters. For example, losing a client or missing a target may feel devastating in the moment, but zooming out may reveal that this setback freed resources for a much bigger opportunity. Conversely, short-term victories may not be as meaningful if they distract from the long-term mission. Zooming out transforms random events into part of a meaningful narrative. Connecting the dots. Another hallmark of seeing the bigger picture is the ability to connect dots across seemingly unrelated fields. History shows us that many breakthroughs come from people who combined ideas from different domains. Steve Jobs blended technology with design and art, creating products that redefined industries. Strategic thinkers constantly ask, what's the hidden link here? How does this connect to something else I know? You can practice this by exposing yourself to diverse information. Read outside your field, observe different industries, learn from history, psychology, and nature. The more varied your mental library, the more likely you'll spot hidden connections. Over time, your brain becomes a pattern recognition machine, seeing opportunities where others see randomness. Balancing short-term and long-term. One of the hardest challenges in strategy is balancing immediate needs with future goals. Too much focus on the short term creates quick results, but leaves you vulnerable to long-term failure. Too much focus on the long term may make you visionary, but ineffective in the present. Seeing the bigger picture means learning to balance both.
Take financial planning as an example. Spending everything now may bring short-term pleasure but creates long-term insecurity. Saving everything for the future may create safety but robs you of present enjoyment. The strategist seeks balance, enough investment in the present to thrive, and enough planning for the future to grow. In leadership, this balance is equally important. A leader obsessed only with quarterly results may sacrifice innovation, burning out their team. A leader obsessed only with the far future may fail to address today's urgent issues. Great strategists move between both perspectives seamlessly, like adjusting a camera lens from wide angle to close-up and back again. Systems thinking, beyond isolated problems. When you see the bigger picture, you stop treating problems in isolation. You start thinking in systems. Systems thinking means recognizing how different parts of life, business, or society interact. A change in one area often produces ripple effects elsewhere. Consider a manager who pushes employees to work harder without realizing that stress reduces creativity and increases turnover. The immediate problem, productivity, was solved, but the system as a whole became weaker. By contrast, a strategic manager recognizes that productivity is connected to morale, culture, and health. They design solutions that strengthen the entire system, not just a single part. You can apply systems thinking to your personal life as well. Health affects energy. Energy affects relationships. Relationships affect focus. Focus affects performance. Nothing exists in isolation. By stepping back and mapping how areas connect, you can make smarter, more holistic choices. Seeing hidden patterns. One of the greatest strengths of a strategist is the ability to detect patterns in chaos. While most people see only noise, strategists notice repeating signals, a market trend, a recurring conflict in relationships, or a habit that keeps producing the same results. These are patterns waiting to be recognized. Spotting patterns requires patience and awareness. It means keeping records, reflecting regularly, and asking, what keeps happening here? Once you identify a pattern, you gain predictive power. You can anticipate outcomes and adjust before others even notice the trend. This is why strategists often appear lucky. In reality, they are simply paying attention to the bigger picture. Expanding mental time horizons. Seeing the bigger picture also means extending your time horizon. Most people think only days or weeks ahead. Strategists think in years or decades. This doesn't mean predicting the future with perfect accuracy. It means developing the discipline to consider how today's actions ripple into the future. Think of planting a tree. In the short term, it looks unimpressive, a sapling, fragile and small. But with time, it grows into something powerful, providing shade, fruit, and stability. Strategic thinkers plant trees in their lives. Habits, relationships, investments, skills. They may not pay off immediately, but in the long run, they create extraordinary results. Cultivating big picture thinking. So, how do you train yourself to see the bigger picture? Here are a few practical exercises. Ask, what's the larger context? Whenever you face a decision, step back and place it within the bigger narrative. Play the long game. Regularly consider how choices today will affect you 5 or 10 years from now. Learn across fields. The more diverse your knowledge, the easier it becomes to connect dots. Reflect weekly. Spend time reviewing events and searching for patterns. Ask, what am I not seeing? Shift perspectives. Imagine you're an outsider looking at your situation. What would they notice that you missed?
Chapter 3. Anticipation is power. Have you ever wished you could see around corners in life? Imagine being able to predict challenges before they arrive or spotting opportunities before anyone else notices them. To many people, this might sound like a superpower, but in reality, anticipation is a skill, a mental muscle that can be developed with practice. And when mastered, it gives you the ability to stay several steps ahead of circumstances, competitors, and even your own fears. Anticipation is the heart of strategic thinking. Without it, you are forced to live reactively, always one step behind, scrambling to fix problems after they appear. With it, you shift from survival mode to mastery, preparing for what's next and turning uncertainty into advantage. As the saying goes, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Anticipation is that ounce of prevention multiplied. The strategic advantage of anticipation. Why does anticipation matter so much? Because the world rarely goes exactly as planned. Markets shift, relationships change, crises appear, and unexpected obstacles surface. Those who fail to anticipate are caught off guard, and in the scramble to react, they make poor choices. On the other hand, those who anticipate are calm, confident, and ready. Think of a seasoned firefighter. They don't just rush into flames blindly. They anticipate how fire spreads, where danger is most likely to appear, and what escape routes must be secured. This foresight doesn't eliminate risk, but it dramatically increases survival. In business, life, and personal growth, the same principle applies. The more you anticipate, the more control you gain. Developing a forward-thinking mind. Anticipation begins with a mindset, learning to think forward. Most people are consumed by the present moment, reacting to whatever is loudest or most urgent. Strategic thinkers discipline themselves to ask, what's next? What happens if this trend continues? What's the likely consequence of this choice? One simple but powerful habit is scenario planning. Whenever you face a decision, don't just stop at the first outcome. Instead, imagine 3 or 4 possible futures. What's the best case scenario, the worst, the most likely, and what unexpected surprises might occur? This process trains your brain to anticipate not just one future, but multiple possibilities. The role of patterns and signals. Anticipation is not guesswork. It's about reading signals and patterns. Life constantly gives us clues about what is likely to happen. The problem is most people ignore them. A relationship doesn't suddenly break overnight. There were warning signs in communication, respect, or attention. A career doesn't collapse in one day. The signals are visible in declining motivation, changing industry trends, or repeated mistakes. A company doesn't fail suddenly. It usually comes after ignored data, customer dissatisfaction, or poor leadership decisions. Strategic thinkers train themselves to notice small signals before they grow into major problems. They ask, what's happening repeatedly? What are the early indicators of change? By noticing patterns early, they buy time to adapt before the situation escalates. Anticipating opportunities, not just problems. When people hear anticipation, they often think of disaster planning. But anticipation is not only about avoiding risk, it's also about spotting opportunities before they become obvious. Consider how investors succeed. They don't wait until everyone is buying, they anticipate trends before the crowd does. They study behaviors, emerging technologies, or cultural shifts that reveal where attention and money will flow next. The same applies in daily life. By anticipating which skills will be valuable in the future, you can learn them early and position yourself ahead of others. By anticipating how relationships evolve, you can invest in the right people long before you need their support. Anticipation transforms you from a follower into a trendsetter. Tools for anticipation. So how do you strengthen your anticipation muscle? Here are some practical tools. Pre-mortem thinking. Instead of only planning for success, imagine that your project or decision has already failed. Ask yourself, what went wrong? What caused the failure? This exercise uncovers hidden risks you can address in advance. Trend scanning. Dedicate time each week to study emerging trends in your field, technology, or society. The sooner you recognize shifts, the sooner you can act. Red team thinking. Challenge your own assumptions. Pretend you're your own competitor, enemy, or a skeptic. Ask, if I wanted to defeat my plan, how would I do it? This gives you fresh perspective. Contingency planning. Always have backup options. great strategists don't bet everything on one outcome. They design alternatives so that if Plan A fails, Plans B and C are ready. Reflective journaling. Keep a record of past decisions and outcomes. By reflecting on mistakes and successes, you sharpen your ability to recognize patterns and avoid repeating errors. Balancing anticipation with action. One danger of anticipation is falling into paralysis by analysis. Some people spend so much time forecasting possibilities that they never act. Strategic anticipation is not about predicting everything perfectly. It's about preparing enough to move forward with confidence. Think of it like driving at night. Your headlights don't show the entire road, but they illuminate enough for you to keep moving safely. Similarly, anticipation doesn't eliminate uncertainty, but it gives you just enough foresight to act wisely. The balance lies in preparing without overthinking. Strategists anticipate, plan, and then execute decisively, adjusting as new information arises. Building calm through preparation. Anticipation also builds emotional resilience. One of the biggest causes of stress is uncertainty, feeling like you're constantly unprepared for what might come next. But when you anticipate, you replace fear with readiness. Imagine walking into an exam without studying versus walking in after weeks of preparation. The situation is the same, but your emotional state is completely different. The prepared mind is calm. The unprepared mind is anxious. In life, the same rule applies. Anticipation doesn't guarantee smooth sailing, but it gives you confidence to face storms with clarity. Learning from history. History is one of the best teachers of anticipation. Wars, business collapses, social movements, and even personal failures all carry lessons for those willing to study them. Patterns repeat themselves because human nature rarely changes. By studying the past, you gain insight into what is likely to happen in the future. This is why great strategists, from generals to entrepreneurs, study history. They don't see it as old stories, but as a field guide for anticipating future dynamics. As the saying goes, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes.
Chapter 4. Turning obstacles into leverage. Every person encounters obstacles, dead ends, failures, setbacks, and unexpected difficulties. For some, these roadblocks feel like walls that stop progress. For others, however, obstacles become tools, fuel, and leverage for growth. The difference isn't the challenge itself, but the mindset with which it is approached. Strategic thinkers know that every obstacle contains hidden energy that can be redirected toward advantage. Instead of asking, "Why me?" they ask, "How can this be used?" History is filled with stories of people who turned setbacks into stepping stones. Thomas Edison tested thousands of designs before inventing the light bulb. Nelson Mandela turned years of imprisonment into a foundation of moral authority that later united a divided nation. Companies like Netflix used industry challenges, the decline of DVD rentals, as leverage to pivot into streaming and dominate an entirely new market. What looks like the end often becomes the beginning of something greater. Shifting the mindset. The first step in turning obstacles into leverage is shifting perspective. Most people view problems as purely negative. They see a failure as evidence of weakness or a rejection as proof of inadequacy. But the strategist reframes the obstacle. Instead of asking, "How do I get rid of this?" they ask, "What can I learn from this? What hidden opportunity is here?" This shift is powerful because it changes the role of obstacles in your life. They stop being threats and become teachers. Each problem carries within it a lesson or a new path. By embracing this mindset, you remove fear from the equation. Failure stops being final. It becomes feedback. The principle of inversion. One powerful tool for using obstacles strategically is the principle of inversion. Instead of asking how to achieve success directly, ask, What stands in the way of success, and how can I turn that into fuel? For example, if a business struggles because of limited resources, that limitation can force creativity and innovation. Many startups thrive because scarcity pushes them to be more efficient, nimble, and customer-focused than larger competitors. If an athlete faces repeated injuries, the obstacle can push them to refine technique, improve recovery, and extend their career. By inverting the problem, you unlock hidden leverage. Building emotional strength. Obstacles also serve as training grounds for emotional resilience. Each challenge you face strengthens your ability to handle future challenges. A person who has never encountered failure is fragile. They panic when difficulties arise. But someone who has weathered storms before develops mental toughness. Strategic thinkers understand this and welcome difficulties as practice. They see obstacles as gyms for the mind and spirit, strengthening their patience, discipline, and endurance. In this way, every challenge becomes preparation for even greater opportunities ahead. Turning setbacks into strategies. Obstacles often reveal blind spots in thinking or weaknesses in systems. Instead of ignoring these signals, the strategist uses them to refine strategy. For example, if a career setback occurs, like being passed over for promotion, it may highlight skills that need improvement or relationships that require more investment. If a project fails, the lessons learned can inform the design of a stronger, more effective plan next time. This is how innovators grow, not by avoiding mistakes, but by studying them deeply and extracting wisdom. Every failed product, every rejection, every wrong turn adds data to the strategist's mental map, allowing them to move forward with sharper clarity. The power of adaptation. Sometimes an obstacle is not meant to be smashed through, but worked around. Strategic thinkers understand that flexibility is often the smarter move than brute force. Instead of pushing endlessly against a locked door, they search for another entrance. Think of water flowing down a mountain. When it encounters a rock, it doesn't stop. It bends, adapts, and finds another path. Over time, that flexibility allows it to carve valleys and shape landscapes. Similarly, when you adapt to obstacles, you find new solutions and sometimes better paths than the one you originally planned. Using opposition as energy. One of the most overlooked ways to use obstacles is to harness opposition itself as fuel. When others doubt you, criticize you, or resist your ideas, you can use that energy to sharpen your conviction and refine your arguments. The resistance forces you to clarify your purpose and strengthen your position. Many great leaders and innovators used opposition as leverage. Criticism became motivation. Resistance became proof that they were onto something disruptive. Strategic thinkers don't crumble under opposition. They thrive because of it. Transforming personal obstacles. This principle applies not only to external obstacles, but also to internal ones. Weaknesses, fears, and limitations can all be flipped into leverage. A person who struggles with shyness may develop strong listening skills, making them a more effective communicator. Someone who has experienced poverty may develop financial discipline and empathy that fuels future leadership. A person who battles anxiety may become more detail-oriented and prepared than peers. When you embrace your limitations and transform them into strengths, obstacles become raw material for your unique advantage. Practical exercises to leverage obstacles. To integrate this principle into your daily life, try these exercises. Obstacle reframe. Write down your current challenges. Next to each one, ask, how can this serve me? What is this teaching me? How could this become an advantage? Scarcity to creativity. Identify one area where you feel limited: time, money, or resources. Challenge yourself to find at least 3 innovative solutions that come because of the limitation. Failure analysis. When something goes wrong, conduct a personal after-action review. What caused the obstacle? What insights can be carried into the future? Flexibility drill. For 1 week, practice consciously choosing an alternative path whenever you face resistance. Instead of pushing harder, ask, what other option exists here? Turn pain into purpose. Reflect on a personal struggle you faced. How can you use that experience to help others, improve your skills, or drive your mission?
Chapter 5. The Psychology of Outsmarting. Have you ever wondered why some people always seem to get their way, whether in negotiations, arguments, or opportunities, while others are overlooked or outmaneuvered? The answer often lies not in brute force, raw intelligence, or even luck, but in understanding the psychology of human behavior. Outsmarting others does not mean trickery or manipulation. It means knowing how people think, feel, and decide, and then using that knowledge to guide outcomes in your favor. Strategic thinkers recognize that human beings are not purely logical machines. They are emotional, social, and deeply influenced by subtle triggers. By mastering the psychology of outsmarting, you unlock a powerful advantage in every interaction. Why psychology beats logic? Most people believe decisions are made rationally. In reality, studies show that emotions often drive decisions, and logic is used afterward to justify them. This means if you appeal only to reason, you risk losing to someone who understands emotion. A strategist uses both. They understand that people want to feel respected, validated, and understood. Once these needs are met, logical arguments land more effectively. For instance, in a business negotiation, instead of focusing only on numbers, a strategic thinker might first build rapport, making the other side feel valued. When emotions are positive, the human brain is far more likely to agree. Outsmarting begins by recognizing that influence flows not just from facts, but from feelings. The power of persuasion. Persuasion is at the core of outsmarting. Legendary psychologist Robert Cialdini identified 6 universal principles of influence that can tilt almost any decision in your favor: reciprocity, commitment, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity. Strategic thinkers use these principles in everyday life. Reciprocity. When you give value first, people feel compelled to return the favor. Even a small gesture of goodwill can create leverage. Commitment. Once someone takes a small step in your direction, they are more likely to continue in that path. This is why starting with small agreements often leads to larger ones. Social proof. People look to others when uncertain. Demonstrating that many others support your idea makes it easier for others to follow. Authority. People trust expertise. Establishing credibility and confidence makes your argument stronger. Liking. We say yes more easily to those we like. Building genuine rapport and showing respect increases influence. Scarcity. People value what is rare or limited. Highlighting exclusivity or urgency can motivate quicker decisions. These are not tricks, they are human tendencies. When used ethically, they help align others' decisions with mutual benefit. Reading people like a strategist. To outsmart effectively, you must become skilled at reading people. This requires paying close attention to body language, tone, and micro-expressions. A person may say yes with words, but reveal hesitation in their eyes or posture. A strategist picks up on these signals and adjusts. For example, in a negotiation, if you notice the other person leaning back, arms crossed, and speaking tersely, they are defensive or skeptical. Instead of pushing harder, you might step back, ask open-ended questions, and rebuild trust. Outsmarting isn't about overpowering, it's about adapting. Equally important is understanding personality types. Some people are motivated by recognition, others by security, and others by challenge. When you know what drives a person, you can tailor your approach. To someone who values recognition, emphasizing how your idea makes them look good will be more effective than presenting raw data. Emotional intelligence as a weapon. Emotional intelligence, or EQ, is perhaps the most important skill in the psychology of outsmarting. It involves recognizing your own emotions, managing them, and reading the emotions of others. People with high EQ can stay calm under pressure, diffuse conflict, and influence outcomes by creating emotional alignment. Think of a leader during a crisis. If they panic, everyone else panics. If they remain calm, confident, and clear, others follow. Outsmarting isn't about louder voices, it's about steadier minds. By managing your emotions and skillfully engaging with others, you gain silent but powerful control. The subtle triggers of influence. Beyond the major principles, there are subtle psychological triggers that often go unnoticed but have enormous power. Framing. The way you present information changes its impact. Saying 90% success rate is more persuasive than 10% failure rate, even though both are identical. Anchoring. The first number mentioned in a negotiation sets the frame. Whoever places the first anchor often controls the range of discussion. Mirroring. Subtly matching someone's tone, pace, or posture creates subconscious trust and rapport. Priming. Exposure to certain words or ideas beforehand influences later decisions. For example, talking about growth and opportunity before pitching an idea primes the mind towards optimism. Silence. Most people rush to fill silence. A well-placed pause after making an offer can pressure the other side to speak first, often revealing more than they intended. Mastering these subtle levers makes you far more persuasive without appearing forceful. Outsmarting in negotiations. Negotiation is one of the clearest arenas where psychology determines winners and losers. The best negotiators don't always have the strongest case. They have the best understanding of human nature. They know when to concede small points to win big ones, when to remain silent, and when to appeal to ego or emotion. For instance, one powerful negotiation strategy is the door-in-the-face technique, making a large request that is likely to be rejected and then following it with a smaller request. The second request feels reasonable by comparison, increasing the chance of agreement. This works because humans are wired to seek balance and fairness. Outsmarting in negotiations also involves patience. Impulsive people often give away too much too quickly. The strategist uses time as a weapon, allowing silence, pauses, and slow pacing to increase pressure on the other side. Outsmarting in everyday life. While negotiations and business deals are obvious uses, the psychology of outsmarting applies everywhere. Want to persuade your boss to support an idea? Present it in a way that makes them look visionary. Want to influence a team? Build unity by showing how others are already on board. Want to resolve a conflict? Listen deeply first, validate the other person's feelings, and then introduce solutions. Outsmarting here means creating harmony, not winning battles. Outsmarting yourself. Perhaps the most important application of this psychology is internal. To outsmart others, you must first outsmart yourself. Humans are subject to the same biases, emotions, and triggers. Self-awareness helps you avoid being manipulated, making you harder to defeat. By recognizing when you are being anchored, primed, or emotionally swayed, you regain control. Outsmarting yourself means mastering your impulses, resisting distractions, and making decisions aligned with long-term strategy rather than short-term emotion.
Chapter 6. Strategic Decision-Making. Life is a constant flow of decisions. Some are small and seemingly insignificant: what to wear, what to eat, which email to answer first. Others carry enormous weight: choosing a career path, deciding on a business investment, ending or beginning a relationship. The quality of your life, in many ways, is determined by the quality of your decisions. Yet most people approach decision-making reactively, relying on gut feelings, peer pressure, or guesswork. Strategic thinkers do it differently. They approach every decision, large or small, with clarity, frameworks, and discipline, allowing them to cut through the noise and consistently choose the path that leads to progress. Why decision-making defines success? If you look at the lives of successful leaders, entrepreneurs, and innovators, you will find one thing in common. They make decisions decisively and strategically. Indecision is the enemy of progress. Every day you delay or avoid a choice, you surrender control to circumstances or to someone else. Strategic decision-making gives you ownership. It ensures you're not drifting through life, but steering it. However, making great decisions doesn't mean you will always be right. Even the best strategists face failures. What separates them is that their decision-making process reduces risk, increases clarity, and maximizes the chances of long-term success. They treat decisions as investments of time, energy, and opportunity, and they aim to invest wisely. Cutting through the noise. Modern life bombards us with information. News, social media, opinions, data, all compete for attention. The challenge is not a lack of information, but too much of it. A strategic decision maker knows how to filter the signal from the noise. This begins with asking the right questions. What really matters here? What outcome am I aiming for? Which factors truly affect this decision and which are distractions? By focusing on essentials, you reduce overwhelm. Strategic thinkers often follow the 80-20 rule or Pareto principle. 20% of the inputs drive 80% of the results. Identifying that crucial 20% helps you make smarter, faster choices without drowning in unnecessary detail. Frameworks for strategic choices. One of the most powerful ways to improve decision-making is to adopt proven frameworks. These mental tools provide structure and clarity when the situation feels chaotic. Let's explore some of the most effective ones. 1. The Eisenhower Matrix. This tool helps you prioritize by dividing tasks into 4 quadrants: urgent and important, important but not urgent, urgent but not important, and neither. By categorizing decisions this way, you stop reacting to urgency and start focusing on importance. 2. First principles thinking. Made famous by Elon Musk, this approach involves breaking problems down to their most basic truths and reasoning up from there. Instead of relying on assumptions or conventional wisdom, you rebuild your decision from the ground up, often discovering innovative solutions. 3. Cost-benefit analysis. A classic tool, this framework evaluates the potential benefits of a decision against its costs, whether time, money, or energy. It forces you to consider trade-offs and prevents impulsive actions. 4. The OODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, and act. Originally developed for fighter pilots, the OODA loop emphasizes speed and adaptability. You observe the situation, orient yourself with the facts, decide quickly, and act. Then you repeat the loop, adjusting as you gain new information. This prevents paralysis by analysis. 5. Inversion thinking. Popularized by Charlie Munger, inversion means thinking backwards. Instead of asking, "What should I do to succeed?" ask, "What could cause me to fail?" By identifying pitfalls in advance, you avoid them and make stronger decisions. The role of mental models. Beyond frameworks, mental models are shortcuts for understanding reality. They allow you to simplify complex systems and make better judgments. Some useful mental models for decision-making include opportunity cost. Every choice has a cost, the next best alternative you give up. Recognizing this keeps you from wasting time or resources on low-value options. Second-order thinking. Don't just consider the immediate outcome of a decision, consider its ripple effects. For example, taking a higher-paying job might seem good, but second-order thinking asks, will it harm your health, family, or growth long-term? And the map is not the territory. Models, opinions, and forecasts are representations of reality, not reality itself. Strategic thinkers test assumptions instead of blindly trusting them. By developing a toolbox of mental models, you improve the accuracy and efficiency of your decisions. Balancing logic and intuition. There is an ongoing debate. Should decisions be based on logic or intuition? Strategic thinkers know the answer is both. Logic provides structure, but intuition provides speed. Logic ensures you consider facts and data. Intuition draws on patterns your subconscious has already learned. For routine or high-risk decisions, lean more on logic and frameworks. For fast-moving or creative situations, allow intuition to guide you. The real mastery is knowing when to switch between the two. Avoiding cognitive biases. Even the smartest minds can make poor decisions due to hidden biases. Cognitive biases are mental shortcuts that distort judgment. Some of the most dangerous include confirmation bias, favoring information that supports what you already believe; anchoring bias, relying too heavily on the first piece of information you encounter; overconfidence bias, believing you know more than you do; status quo bias, preferring things to stay the same even when change is better. A strategic decision maker is vigilant about these traps. They seek diverse perspectives, challenge assumptions, and ask, what would make me wrong? Decision-making under pressure. Strategic decision-making is tested most when the stakes are high and time is short. In such moments, clarity and calmness become essential. The best strategists prepare in advance by pre-deciding, anticipating common challenges, and setting rules beforehand. For example, an investor might decide never to risk more than 5% of their portfolio on one trade. Staying centered using breathing techniques or mental resets to remain calm. Emotional decisions often lead to regret. And trusting systems. When pressure hits, fall back on frameworks rather than panic-driven guesses. Preparation makes you faster and sharper under fire. Learning from past decisions. Great decision makers are not flawless, they are learners. Every outcome, whether success or failure, is feedback. By reviewing past decisions, you refine your judgment. Ask, what went well and why? What went wrong and what caused it? What can I do differently next time? Keeping a decision journal, writing down what you decided, why, and the result, helps reveal patterns in your thinking and exposes blind spots. Over time, this transforms you into a far more strategic thinker.
Chapter 7. Game Theory in Everyday Life. Life is full of interactions, negotiations, and competitions, whether we notice them or not. From business deals to personal relationships, from career advancement to social dynamics, almost every decision involves anticipating how others will act and adjusting your strategy accordingly. This is where game theory comes in, a powerful tool that can transform the way you approach challenges. Game theory is the study of strategic decision-making where multiple players interact, each aware that their choices affect others, and vice versa. While it originated in mathematics and economics, its principles apply to everyday life. By understanding game theory, you gain the ability to anticipate behavior, outsmart competitors, and create win-win outcomes rather than constantly clashing with others. The core idea: strategic thinking in interaction. Most people think linearly. If I do X, Y will happen. But in reality, your outcomes often depend on the decisions of others. A simple example, negotiating a salary. You can't just demand a raise. Your boss has constraints, goals, and expectations. The best approach is to anticipate their likely reactions, position yourself accordingly, and create options that benefit both sides.
game theory teaches you to think beyond your immediate actions. It's about predicting the moves of others, understanding incentives, and designing strategies that maximize your long-term advantage. Every interaction becomes a game, and your job is to play it wisely. The prisoner's dilemma: cooperation versus competition. One of the most famous concepts in game theory is the prisoner's dilemma. Imagine two individuals caught in a crime. If both stay silent, they receive light sentences. If one betrays the other, the betrayer goes free while the other suffers. If both betray, they both face harsh penalties. The dilemma illustrates a universal tension. Should you act selfishly or cooperate? In everyday life, this applies to business partnerships, friendships, and teams. Acting purely selfishly may provide short-term gain, but erode trust and long-term opportunity. Cooperation, when chosen strategically, can create mutual advantage. Understanding this dynamic helps you navigate relationships and negotiate outcomes that benefit both parties, rather than escalating conflict unnecessarily. Zero-sum versus non-zero-sum games. Strategic thinking also requires understanding the type of game you are playing. In zero-sum games, one person's gain is exactly another's loss. Chess, poker, and many competitive sports are examples. Success here comes from predicting your opponent's moves and exploiting weaknesses. However, most real-life scenarios are non-zero-sum. Collaboration can increase the total benefit, creating situations where both sides gain. For example, in business, partnerships can lead to shared profits, joint ventures, and expanded markets. Recognizing whether you're in a zero-sum or non-zero-sum situation allows you to adjust your strategy, switching between aggressive tactics and cooperative approaches as appropriate. The importance of anticipation. A core lesson of game theory is that your success depends on anticipating others' moves. This requires observation, analysis, and pattern recognition. Consider a negotiation scenario. If you can anticipate the other party's priorities, fears, and constraints, you can design proposals that align with their interests while advancing your own. Anticipation also applies in social situations. If you recognize that a colleague seeks recognition, you can frame your ideas in a way that lets them shine, increasing your influence without creating resistance. By predicting behavior, you gain leverage, reduce friction, and navigate challenges more effectively. Win-win thinking. Game theory is often misinterpreted as being about outsmarting others at every turn. In reality, the most powerful applications are those that create mutual gain. A win-win outcome strengthens relationships, builds trust, and expands opportunities over time. For instance, in team projects, instead of competing for credit, a strategist ensures each member's contributions is recognized while advancing the project's goals. In negotiations, presenting options that satisfy both sides increases the likelihood of agreement and long-term collaboration. Win-win thinking shifts your focus from short-term victories to sustained strategic advantage. Signaling and commitment. Two critical concepts in game theory are signaling and commitment. Signaling involves sending a clear message about your intentions, capabilities, or limits. A strong, credible signal can influence others' choices. For example, in business, demonstrating expertise or reliability can encourage collaboration or prevent exploitation. Commitment is about making decisions that constrain your future options in a way that benefits your strategy. For example, a company investing heavily in a new technology signals to competitors that it is serious and committed. People often respect commitment, adjusting their own behavior accordingly. Strategic use of signaling and commitment allows you to shape the game before it fully unfolds. Avoiding common pitfalls. Applying game theory in life is not automatic. It requires awareness. Many people fall into traps such as overthinking, analyzing every possibility endlessly, which leads to indecision, assuming rationality, expecting others to act logically at all times when human behavior is often emotional and unpredictable, ignoring long-term consequences, focusing on immediate gains at the expense of future opportunities. Strategic thinkers avoid these pitfalls by combining anticipation, observation, and flexibility. They understand that the game is dynamic, and adaptability is as important as cleverness. Real-world applications. Career advancement. Understanding the motivations and goals of colleagues and superiors helps you position yourself strategically, fostering alliances and minimizing conflict. Business negotiations. Predicting competitors' moves, leveraging incentives, and designing mutually beneficial deals ensures sustainable success. Personal relationships. Anticipating emotional needs and signaling intentions builds trust, reduces misunderstandings, and strengthens bonds. Conflict resolution. Recognizing that every party has incentives allows you to craft solutions that reduce tension and achieve cooperation. The strategist's mindset. At its core, applying game theory in everyday life is about mindset. You treat interactions not as random events, but as interconnected systems. You consider incentives, anticipate reactions, and craft strategies that maximize outcomes. You shift from reactive behavior to proactive, intentional decision-making. When applied consistently, game theory transforms how you navigate life. You start seeing opportunities where others see obstacles. You build relationships that compound value. You avoid unnecessary conflicts and position yourself as a thinker, planner, and influencer rather than a passive participant.
Chapter 8. Adaptive Thinking. Life rarely goes according to plan. Even the best-laid strategies can be disrupted by sudden changes, unexpected obstacles, or shifting circumstances. The ability to adapt, to adjust plans, pivot when necessary, and thrive in uncertainty is what separates those who succeed from those who stagnate. This is the essence of adaptive thinking, the secret weapon of great strategists. In a world defined by volatility, complexity, and rapid change, flexibility is not optional. It is essential. Adaptive thinking begins with mindset. Many people resist change because it feels uncomfortable, uncertain, or risky. They cling to routines and rigid plans, believing that consistency guarantees success. While structure has value, excessive rigidity is dangerous. Strategic thinkers understand that the path to success is rarely linear. Obstacles, surprises, and even failures are inevitable. Instead of resisting them, the adaptive strategist embraces them as signals, opportunities, and challenges to innovate. The power of mental flexibility. Mental flexibility is the foundation of adaptive thinking. It allows you to step back from a situation, reevaluate assumptions, and shift perspective when needed. For example, a business leader may have a detailed plan for a product launch, only to face sudden market changes or regulatory hurdles. Rather than panicking or forcing the original plan, a strategist analyzes the new environment, identifies emerging opportunities, and adjusts strategy accordingly. This flexibility is not indecision, it is disciplined responsiveness. Adaptive thinkers do not react randomly, they respond thoughtfully. They weigh new information, anticipate consequences, and pivot strategically. Flexibility becomes a tool to convert uncertainty into advantage rather than a source of anxiety. Anticipation meets adaptation. Adaptive thinking builds on anticipation. When you anticipate potential changes, you prepare mentally and structurally for them. This preparation allows for faster, more effective adaptation when circumstances shift. Anticipation provides the foresight, and adaptive thinking provides the agility to act. Learning to pivot. A key element of adaptive thinking is the ability to pivot. Pivoting means changing direction without losing sight of the ultimate goal. It requires courage, humility, and a willingness to acknowledge when a strategy is no longer optimal. Consider entrepreneurs like Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn. LinkedIn's original vision
differed from what it became. By pivoting based on user behavior, market demand, and technology trends, the company transformed from a niche networking site into a global professional platform. The lesson is clear. Adaptation is not a sign of failure. It is a strategic tool to achieve greater success. Embracing uncertainty. Adaptive thinking also requires comfort with uncertainty. Life is inherently unpredictable, and rigid control is an illusion. Strategic thinkers cultivate a mindset that sees uncertainty as a playground rather than a threat. When a situation is unclear, adaptive thinkers ask, "What can I learn? What variables are changing? How can I test solutions safely?" Rather than fearing ambiguity, they explore it systematically, using it as a laboratory for innovation. Tools for adaptive thinking. To develop adaptive thinking, there are practical techniques you can apply. Scenario planning. Consider multiple potential futures for every major decision. Prepare strategies for each scenario so you can pivot seamlessly. Rapid feedback loops. Test ideas quickly, gather feedback, and adjust immediately. This prevents wasted effort and accelerates learning. Stress testing plans. Regularly challenge your strategies by asking, what could go wrong? What if key assumptions fail? Learning from failure. Treat every setback as an experiment. Analyze what went wrong, extract lessons, and apply them to future decisions. Mindset shifts. Practice reframing obstacles as opportunities. When change occurs, ask, how can this shift be leveraged to my advantage? Cognitive flexibility. Adaptive thinking is deeply linked to cognitive flexibility, the ability to shift thinking, consider multiple perspectives, and move between analytical and creative modes. This skill allows strategists to generate innovative solutions in the face of complexity. For instance, a manager facing a sudden drop in team performance might explore multiple approaches simultaneously, reorganizing responsibilities, introducing new incentives, improving communication, or offering training. By thinking flexibly, they identify the most effective combination rather than relying on a single, rigid solution. Resilience as a component. Flexibility alone is not enough. It must be coupled with resilience. Adaptive thinkers encounter setbacks, resistance, and unexpected changes regularly. Without emotional resilience, even the most flexible strategies can falter. Resilience allows you to recover quickly, maintain focus, and continue taking strategic action despite adversity. Adaptive thinking is most powerful when it combines flexibility with the inner strength to act decisively. Adaptive leadership. Adaptive thinking is particularly crucial in leadership. Leaders who can pivot, manage uncertainty, and guide teams through change create environments where innovation and growth flourish. Employees, collaborators, and partners feel safe to experiment, propose ideas, and navigate challenges together. For example, during times of crisis, whether economic, technological, or social, adaptive leaders make quick yet informed adjustments, communicate clearly, and maintain morale. Their flexibility inspires confidence and creates a culture that thrives on change rather than fearing it. Real-life applications. Career growth. When industries evolve, adaptive thinking helps you retrain skills, pivot roles, and seize emerging opportunities. Entrepreneurship. Flexibility allows startups to adjust products, target markets, and business models in response to customer needs. Personal challenges. Life throws unexpected obstacles, health issues, family matters, or financial setbacks. Adaptive thinking enables problem-solving rather than despair. Decision-making. When unexpected data arises, adaptive thinkers update strategies instead of clinging to outdated assumptions.
Chapter 9. Building Influence and Alliances. No strategist succeeds alone. The world is a network of people, organizations, and opportunities. And your ability to achieve ambitious goals often depends on the influence you wield and the alliances you build. Influence is not manipulation. It is the power to guide decisions, inspire trust, and align others toward a shared vision. Alliances are not just friendships. They are mutually beneficial relationships that multiply impact. Mastering both transforms your strategic thinking from solitary brilliance into unstoppable momentum. Understanding influence. Influence is the capacity to affect the actions, thoughts, and decisions of others. Unlike authority, which is often positional, influence is earned. It comes from credibility, trust, expertise, and empathy. People follow those who they respect, who understand their needs, and who consistently deliver value. Strategic thinkers recognize that influence is a multiplier. It allows them to move faster, gain support, and create opportunities that would be impossible alone. For instance, a skilled entrepreneur can rally investors, mentors, and collaborators to launch an idea that no individual could achieve independently. Influence amplifies your reach, effectiveness, and impact. Building credibility. Credibility is the foundation of influence. Without it, even the best ideas fall flat. Credibility comes from three sources: competence, consistency, and integrity. Competence. People trust those who know what they are doing. Expertise and skill create respect and confidence. Consistency. Regularly delivering results builds reliability. If others see that you consistently follow through, your words and commitments gain weight. Integrity. Ethical behavior and transparency create trust. People naturally align with those whose intentions are clear and honorable. Influence grows when credibility is visible and reinforced through actions, not just words. The role of empathy. Understanding others is critical to influence. Strategic thinkers invest time in learning what motivates people, what fears or challenges they face, and what outcomes they truly desire. Empathy allows you to tailor your approach, frame messages persuasively, and create genuine connection. For example, in a workplace, a manager who listens to employees' concerns and addresses them thoughtfully gains loyalty and cooperation. In negotiations, understanding the other party's priorities allows for solutions that satisfy both sides, increasing agreement and long-term collaboration. Influence without empathy is often shallow. Influence with empathy is enduring. Creating mutually beneficial alliances. Alliances are more than networks. They are strategic partnerships that multiply strength and opportunity. The key to successful alliances is reciprocity, ensuring that all parties benefit. Start by identifying potential allies whose goals align with yours. Look for complementarities, skills, resources, or access that fill gaps in your own capabilities. Approach alliances with a mindset of value creation, not exploitation. Ask, how can we help each other succeed? How can our collaboration produce outcomes neither could achieve alone? In business, alliances can take the form of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, or shared initiatives. In personal growth, mentorship relationships are alliances that provide guidance, knowledge, and opportunities. Alliances extend influence by combining networks, resources, and credibility. Communication as a strategic tool. Influence and alliances are built through communication. Strategic communication is clear, persuasive, and tailored to the audience. It involves listening actively, asking questions, and framing messages in ways that resonate with others' goals. Framing. Present ideas in a way that highlight mutual benefit. Storytelling. People remember and relate to stories more than abstract concepts. Clarity. Avoid ambiguity. Clearly articulate expectations, goals, and value. Effective communication reinforces credibility, strengthens alliances, and makes influence tangible. Leveraging networks strategically. Strategic thinkers do not collect contacts aimlessly, they cultivate networks purposefully. Every relationship is evaluated for potential value, alignment, and trust. Networking is not about quantity, it's about quality and depth. Focus on creating meaningful connections, people you can collaborate with, learn from, and support over time. Nurture relationships by offering help, sharing insights, and staying in touch regularly. Alliances built on trust and reciprocity endure challenges, and these strong networks become powerful multipliers of your strategic goals. Influence in negotiation. Negotiation is a critical arena for influence. The goal is not to overpower, but to align interests. Strategic negotiators understand both parties' needs, identify areas of leverage, and propose solutions that maximize value for all involved. Influence in negotiation often relies on preparation and empathy, anticipating objections, presenting evidence persuasively, and demonstrating understanding of the other party's priorities. By creating trust and framing outcomes as mutually beneficial, strategic thinkers convert resistance into collaboration. Handling conflict strategically. Influence and alliances are tested during conflict. Strategic thinkers approach disputes not as battles to be won, but as opportunities to reinforce credibility and strengthen relationships. Conflict resolution involves listening to understand, not to respond. Identifying shared interests to create common ground. Proposing solutions that acknowledge concerns while advancing objectives. Those who navigate conflict effectively preserve alliances, maintain influence, and often emerge stronger from challenging situations. Influence as long-term investment. Building influence is not a one-time effort, it is a long-term investment. Each interaction, gesture, and decision either strengthens or weakens your influence. Consistency, authenticity, and generosity compound over time, creating a reputation that precedes you. Similarly, alliances require ongoing attention. Check in regularly, offer support proactively, and celebrate successes together. Strong alliances weather challenges, survive competition, and provide resources and opportunities that accelerate success. Real-world applications. Career growth. Influence colleagues, mentors, and industry peers to support your vision while building alliances that provide guidance, collaboration, and opportunities. Business leadership. Align teams, inspire employees, and form partnerships that multiply resources and reach. Entrepreneurship. Develop credibility, negotiate effectively, and leverage networks to scale ventures quickly. Personal relationships. Build trust, understand motivations, and cultivate alliances that enrich life and create mutual success.
Chapter 10. Designing your strategic life. Strategy is often associated with business, warfare, or competitive environments, but its principles are equally transformative when applied to your life. A strategic life is one where you are intentional, proactive, and always moving toward long-term goals while remaining adaptable in the face of change. It is about aligning daily actions with overarching visions, making deliberate choices, and consistently positioning yourself ahead of the curve. This chapter will teach you how to design your life as a strategist, turning chaos into opportunity and potential into results. The power of vision. Every strategic life begins with a clear vision. Without it, daily decisions can feel scattered, reactive, or meaningless. Your vision is the guiding star that informs priorities, drives motivation, and filters opportunities. Strategic thinkers spend time articulating what they want their life to look like in the next 5, 10, or 20 years. Creating a vision involves asking yourself, what do I want to accomplish? What values do I want to live by? What legacy do I wish to leave? A well-defined vision provides clarity and a reference point for every decision. It acts as a compass, ensuring that actions align with long-term aspirations rather than short-term distractions. Aligning actions with goals. Once your vision is clear, the next step is alignment. Every action you take should either move you closer to your long-term objectives or build capacity to do so. Strategic living requires intentionality, choosing tasks and habits that compound over time rather than drifting through life reacting to immediate pressures. For example, if your vision involves becoming a thought leader in your field, daily actions might include reading, writing, networking, and sharing insights online. If your goal is financial independence, actions such as budgeting, investing, and skill building become critical. Alignment ensures that your time, energy, and resources are consistently deployed where they generate the highest returns. Prioritization and the 80-20 rule. In designing a strategic life, prioritization is non-negotiable. Not all tasks are equally important. The 80-20 principle teaches us that roughly 20% of efforts produce 80% of results. Identifying and focusing on high-impact activities accelerates progress toward your goals. Strategic individuals routinely evaluate their schedules, projects, and commitments. They ask, does this action advance my vision? Does it provide significant value, or is it a distraction? By ruthlessly prioritizing, they free up time and energy for the pursuits that truly matter. Designing systems, not just goals. Goals are important, but systems are transformative. Goals define destinations. Systems define the processes that consistently move you toward those destinations. Strategic living emphasizes building routines, habits, and structures that automatically align with your long-term vision. For example, rather than setting a vague goal like get healthy, a strategic approach is to design a system, a weekly exercise schedule, a balanced meal plan, and a sleep routine. Similarly, to build wealth, establish systems for saving, investing, and acquiring knowledge. Systems make progress repeatable, predictable, and less reliant on willpower alone. Flexibility and contingency planning. Even the most carefully designed plans will face unexpected disruptions. A strategic life anticipates change and includes contingency plans. This doesn't mean expecting failure, but preparing to pivot when conditions shift. Adaptive thinkers build flexibility into their routines and mindset. They identify potential risks, maintain reserves, whether time, energy, or resources, and develop alternate paths. When change arises, they pivot seamlessly instead of being derailed. Life becomes a game of possibilities rather than a series of crises. The strategic mindset in daily life. Designing a strategic life requires thinking like a strategist every day. This includes reflection, regularly reviewing progress, identifying gaps and adjusting strategies. Prioritization, focusing on high-leverage activities and eliminating low-value distractions. Learning, continuously acquiring knowledge and skills to improve decision-making. Adaptation, remaining flexible in the face of changing circumstances. Each decision, small or large, becomes part of a larger system aimed at achieving your vision. You live intentionally, with awareness that choices compound over time, producing significant cumulative impact. Leveraging relationships strategically. Your network is one of your greatest assets. Strategic living involves cultivating relationships that align with your goals while offering mutual value. This includes mentors, peers, collaborators, and allies who provide guidance, support, and opportunities. Building influence and alliances, as discussed in the previous chapter, is central here. Every interaction is approached with awareness. How can I contribute to this relationship? How does this alliance advance shared goals? Relationships, when leveraged strategically, act as accelerators, multiplying your effectiveness and reach. Risk and reward. Strategic living also requires a sophisticated understanding of risk. Calculated risk-taking is often necessary to achieve extraordinary outcomes. Avoiding all risk leads to stagnation, while reckless risk invites failure. The key is identifying high-reward opportunities and mitigating potential downsides. For example, investing in a new business venture or learning a challenging skill carries risk, but with preparation, research, and careful planning, the potential rewards outweigh the dangers. Strategic thinkers evaluate risk constantly, balancing ambition with prudence. Continuous learning and self-improvement. A strategic life is dynamic. The world changes, industries evolve, and opportunities shift. Continuous learning ensures you remain ahead of the curve. This includes formal education, self-study, mentoring, and reflective practice. Strategic thinkers view every experience, success or failure, as a learning opportunity. They extract insights, refine methods, and apply knowledge systematically. Over time, this iterative approach produces exponential growth in skill, influence, and results. Designing a life of impact. Ultimately, designing a strategic life is about creating impact not only for yourself, but for the people and world around you. By aligning vision, actions, systems, relationships, and learning, you create a life that consistently produces value, achieves goals, and adapts to change. Strategic living is a long-term investment in personal mastery and meaningful outcomes. It is the conscious choice to live deliberately rather than drift, to shape circumstances instead of being shaped by them, and to leverage every resource, time, energy, knowledge, and relationships towards a life of purpose.